What's up, everybody, and welcome to my top 50 comedies of all time. Typically around this time of the year, you start to see a lot of best of, worst of, most disappointing of the past year. And since this year is 2020, there's been hardly any movies out. I didn't see any point in doing that. So I figured I would go big, go bold, and do some all-time lists. So I'm going to be talking about my top 50 comedies in this video. Soon after this, you're going to see my top 50 action movies. Soon after that, my top 50 horror films. And then at the very end of the year, possibly the first week of January, you're going to get the massive list of my top 100 films of all time. But I'm not the only crazy bastard that's undergoing this little craziness. This is going to be a collaboration with my good buddy, my cohort over at Autop Stream, Brian Lomax, from Brian Lomax Movie Talk. So when you're done watching this list, I'm going to have a link down below for his video. Every single time we drop one of these, go and check out his. I guarantee you it's going to be a very different list over on his channel. So go check out what comedies, action films, horror films, and films overall made his top 50 and top 100 at his channel whenever you're done watching this one. As like whenever I do one of these big rankings, one of these big lists, I'm not going to be talking and giving commentary on every single one of these movies. Just ones where I feel like there's something funny or something relevant that I should add to the conversation. Other than that, you're going to see a lot of montage. But if you have not seen any of these movies, I implore you, check them out because they are my favorites of all time. Coming in at number 50 is a very underrated little 80s raunchy romantic comedy called Secret Admirer. This was actually one of the movies, like many of the movies on this list, that my dad introduced me to. Just brought home a random DVD that he had ordered one day, sat down and watched it. You got C. Thomas Howell, you got Kelly Preston, rest in peace, one of the most gorgeous, iconic 80s blonde beauties ever. And then you have Lori Loughlin, which is a casting that doesn't age so well. But nonetheless, you've got these three actors that are together. C. Thomas Howell's kind of not really a nerd, but he's definitely on the more rowdy side of high school. Kelly Preston is kind of like the goddess of the high school, and Lori Loughlin is his friend who he has no romantic feelings for whatsoever. He gets this secret admirer note in his locker on the last day of school before summertime, and he spends the rest of the summer trying to both figure out who the secret admirer is and also become a secret admirer himself and get Lori Loughlin to send these little love notes to Kelly Preston. And it's just a very cute, very sweet, and very funny movie to where they nail all that 80s raunch that we love from that era. If you like these three actors, it's among the three funniest roles you'll ever see them play.
We lost Raj! Pussies!
There's a lot of really sweet stuff in there as far as, you know, the high school melodrama stuff that we always see in high school comedies kind of being shown itself, how ridiculous it is, him learning lessons and growing as a person by the end of it. It's just a great comedy. It's very funny, very underrated. Very few people have seen it. There is a Blu-ray out there, so definitely treat yourself, either find it, stream it, or go buy that Blu-ray because it is awesome.
Dairy Group. Milk Duds. You hide these under your pillow, bro, so your mom doesn't find them. If she does, you're twigged, buddy. You keep on cruising. Fruit Group. Sweet Tarts. These are killer, buddy. So citrusy, dude, you'll freak.
You mustn't fuck with the Department of Motor Vehicles, Mr. Anderson. We can make your life a living hell.
I'm just not ready to say I love you.
What on earth makes you think I want you to say I love you?
Oh, come on. Back there, you wouldn't do it because I wouldn't say those three little words.
Suck my cock.
This mofo knows not to mess with Sir Joseph's dirt. Ah! You didn't listen to me! Ah! Ah!
So I gotta ask you, Neil, did you ever get it on with Wando off the set?
Dude, I humped every piece of ass ever on that show.
Even the chick who played the hot nurse?
No. I didn't go all the way with her.
Blue Streak, definitely my favorite Martin Lawrence-led comedy. You know, probably his most famous role is in Bad Boys, you know, those three movies now. That is definitely what he will be remembered for. But as far as his standalone movies, he had a couple of good hits. Big Mama's House was one of them that was very close to making this list. Blue Streak has always been my favorite. I love the concept of this, you know, rowdy thief that gets arrested, goes back to find this stash, this diamond that he hid right before the cops found him, and then finds out that the building, the construction site that he hid it in, has now become a police station. So now he has to become a cop to get his diamond from this police station. And throughout the entire movie, because he has that street smarts, he knows the mind of a criminal, he keeps climbing the ladder, and he's like the best cop in this entire precinct.
Detectives, I've been assigned Mr. Tully.
Great. That's him.
Oh my God, what in the world? What's going on?
It's a very funny movie. It's Martin Lawrence in his prime, at his best. And I always have some nostalgic memories of this movie because I remember it came out, it was thick in the winter back when I lived in Ohio, so you get like 9 inches of snow. And a buddy of mine came over, and it was just me. My dad was very strict and very protective of me whenever I was young, and didn't really want me going out of the house without him knowing, without him being home. And so this kid that I knew from school comes, hey, you want to come out and play? And I'm like, my dad's not here. Yeah, I'll come out and play. And being the dumbass kid that I left a bunch of evidence in the yard that I was outside messing around and not inside where I was supposed to be. So I watched the movie about halfway through. Then the kid came over, I played for a couple hours, came in, dried off, put all my clothes away, tried to hide whatever evidence I could. My dad came home, knew immediately that I was outside playing. He's like, you're grounded, you're not watching Blue Streak, whatever. And I'm like, fuck, I want to see how it ends. And my dad finally put the movie in later on that night, and by about the time he got to the halfway point, I kind of weaseled my way back into his good graces, and he's like, all right, fine, come watch it. You're going to miss the first half. And I'm like, oh, man. Not knowing that I'd already watched it. So I always have one of those little funny story memories whenever I think of Blue Streak. But just as a comedy, if you like Martin Lawrence, that one's my favorite.
Hey, here's the deal. When life gives you lemons, just say fuck the lemons and bail.
Yeah, no, you said it, totally. You gotta just pull yourself up by your wetsuit, get back on that board. Hey, look, man, if you're attacked by a shark, are you gonna give up surfing?
Probably, yeah.
This is war.
Baby. Have you ever watched pornographic videos?
No. Shithead, let's go! Get off my case, motherfucker!
Hey, no towels, man.
I got you, you son of a bitch! Don't you right home?
Awesome! Totally awesome!
I'm getting bored, man. You want to come over and play G.I. Joe's?
I would love to.
No! Come on. You know what? Screw you, man. Ricky, man, you got to cross over the anger bridge.
Number 38 is The Girl Next Door. Now, let me tell you, if Salma Hayek's role in From Dusk Till Dawn wasn't the moment that I immediately hit puberty, even though I was like, what, 6 years old, 1996, this role from Alicia Cuthbert was a role in a woman that I was obsessed with for years to come. That was like, oh my God, that was my pool scene. On one hand, a lot of people criticize this movie for being just a raunchier version of Risky Business. It does have a lot of the same notes in the story, but for me, it goes in its own direction so much that I don't really think you can accuse it of being a ripoff. It's more like a cousin to Risky Business, which is another awesome movie if you've never seen it. But The Girl Next Door, you get this dorky kid with his dorky friends, and this gorgeous girl moves across the street, and it's Alicia Cuthbert, and they start to have this romance. He starts to get broken out of his shell by her, where she just forces him to face reality, forces him to actually have some balls, to take charge of things, and then he finds out that she's actually a retired porn star. And wow, does that cause some issues when you're a high school guy thinking you found the love of your life and realize that she's been fucked on camera so many times. So it's a very touching comedy that has some sweet edge to it, but a lot of raunch. And man, does it not have one of the funniest turns by Timothy Olyphant, one of my favorite character actors who eventually became just a lead actor with Justified. He is awesome in this as kind of the Joel Pantoliano role, the crazy pimp. It's a fucking riot of a movie. If you love high school comedies, raunchy sex comedies, this is one of the best, and one that unfortunately a lot of people are not really talking about because it gets that risky business comparison. 37 is going to be Saving Silverman. This is another comedy that I never really hear anybody talk about. This came out right in that golden age when Jason Biggs was a big name. American Pie had came out. He was doing a lot of these other side roles. Never really got to be the lead again until Saving Silverman, if I remember correctly. And it's got a hilarious role from Jack Black, a hilarious role from Steve Zahn, who's another great comedic actor that just pops up once in a while in one of these little classic comedies. And it's a story about three friends, one of them being Jason Biggs, who gets ripped out of the circle by this hot-ass chick that he becomes, in a relationship with, and she's very overbearing, controls everything that he does, everything that he says, and his two friends are trying to do this plot where they kidnap her, fake her death, and try to set him up with somebody else because they want their friend back.
All right! Yeah! We're gonna kidnap Judith and set Darren up with Sandy!
Yeah!
What?
Definitely watch the unrated or the R-rated version. There is a PG-13 version of this movie, which is still funny, but not nearly as funny. So find that one if you're gonna check it out, but it's a movie that I continuously rewatch and I always laugh. It's just one of those comedies from that little American Pie era that seemed to just slip under the radar, but not for me. One of my favorites.
I can prove to you that I am not gay. Kiss me.
Oh, this is just sad. You shut up, bitch!
Number 35 is going to be Bedazzled. Now, I'm doing a lot of them here in the 30s, but Bedazzled is one of those movies I definitely want to talk about because this is another one of those movies that nobody ever talks about. You had Brendan Fraser back whenever The Mummy came out, and he was kind of on top. This was around that era. And you get Elizabeth Hurley, who again was a name that was pretty big for a while there with the Austin Powers movies and then kind of went away forever. So two actors you never see anymore that made this classic little comedy, which is actually a remake. And to me, it's one of the funniest damn movies ever made. You get this guy, Elliot, played by Brendan Fraser, who is the textbook dork that nobody wants to be friends with, that no woman can be around, that he's just socially retarded and just does not understand why his personality won't let him mingle with his friends or people that he thinks is his friends or walk across the bar and talk to this girl. And he's infatuated with this girl that he works with. He says to himself that he would give anything to be with this girl, and Elizabeth Hurley, who plays the devil, hears him and answers that call. She gets him to sell his soul for 7 wishes, and every single time that he wishes, she does any possible thing she can to fuck up this wish, and it's just an absolute riot. He wants to be rich and powerful, becomes a Colombian drug lord.
Muy buenos días, señor. ¿Le apetece algo de comer?
Como dices, no habla español. Un momento. Estoy hablando español.
He wants to be strong and be famous. He's a basketball player that everybody loves, but he's got a dick that's about that big. It is fucking hilarious. It's one of the funniest, innocently PG-13 comedies that I've ever seen. It's a classic to me. Not a whole lot of people have seen it. Time to change that.
When you hear the sound of thunder, don't you get too scared. Just grab your thunder buddy and say these magic words. Fuck you, thunder, you can suck my dick. You can't get me thunder cause you're just God's fuss.
I'm sorry, what? Punch me in the fucking face!
Oh! 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 Oh, shit! Oh, my shoulder! Awesome!
Mom! Mom!
Hey, Derek, you know what's always good for shoulder pain?
What?
If you lick my butthole.
Snap!
Thank you! Yes! What did I tell you?
It doesn't have any eyes, Tommy.
Don't put him mouth to the throat. It's vulnerable spot.
The rock, it doesn't have any vulnerable spots.
I know! You construct a weapon. Look around you. Can you form some sort of rudimentary lathe?
A lathe! Get off the line, guy! The price is wrong, bitch.
Number 27 is Money Talks. Chris Tucker will always be remembered for playing Smokey in Friday. He will always be celebrated for playing Carter in the Rush Hour movies, but there was a movie squeezed in between those two franchises that was, to me, his funniest role ever that very little people talk about, and that is Money Talks, where he's paired with Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen is this news anchor, or this news reporter actually, and Chris Tucker is this street hustler who gets accused of murder, and they have to work together to clear Chris Tucker's name. All the while there is these French gangsters trying to find these diamonds that Chris Tucker is accused of being in cahoots with. It is hilarious.
You call back. What I tell you? Alright, motherfucker, this the deal. Mama, I ain't know it was you. Mama, I ain't know it was you.
Not only is Chris Tucker at his funniest in this, but Charlie Sheen is at his funniest in this. For a guy that, after this movie and had his 2.5 Men run, has kind of gone off the rails and is kind of a bad joke, no pun intended nowadays. But this is in his prime when he's still young, he still looks pretty healthy, and he's a fucking riot. He has great chemistry with Chris Tucker.
Franklin, listen to me. I'm with some people right now who promised to kill me unless you give them those diamonds. You know, the ones you forgot to mention.
What diamonds?
The fucking diamonds, you prick!
Medulla oblongata.
What?
Tell them to shoot you in the medulla oblongata right behind the ear. You won't feel shit.
I honestly wish that we could have gotten another comedy with those two, whether or not it was a sequel or not. I think the chemistry between those two is just as strong as the chemistry that he became famous for having with Jackie Chan in the Rush Hour movies. It's a classic to me. Chris Tucker's funniest. People will argue Friday, but I think this is his funniest role. Friday's probably a better movie, but this is his funniest role.
Why do you need to leave Ridgefield? We grew up here. All our friends are here. It's the perfect place to raise a family.
Oh, yeah. Living in your sister's basement with 5 kids while you're off every weekend doing wedding gigs at a whopping $60 a pop?
Once again, things that could have been brought to my attention yesterday!
I got it stuck. You got what stuck? It. Oh! It, listen, it's not the end of the world. These kind of things happen. Let's have a look at it. Oh, for God, never say!
I'm sorry, Numsi. I should be punished. Everyone I have stolen from my brother, Numsi. Officer, it is your duty to take me in. Please, purge me. I am ashamed of myself. I should be arrested. I should be purged. I should be flogged.
I love you, man. This is a movie that is probably the most quotable comedy of all time for me. And oddly enough, when I first saw it, I saw it with my best friend Zach back when we were in Statesboro for the year that we were in college. And at the time, I liked it, but I didn't know if I loved it. There was something so weird and off-kilter about it that I didn't quite know how to process it. But every single time that I have rewatched this movie since, which has been about 7 or 8 times, it gets funnier, it gets more classic, it gets more relatable, it gets more quotable. It has become one of my favorite comedies of all time. Just this innocent situation of Paul Rudd being a little bit socially inept, not really knowing how to bond with people, and has to get a best man for his wedding so that he doesn't feel like a loser. Comes across Jason Segel, who is like the coolest dude ever, that just gives no fucks, is such a laid-back personality, loves to jam out to Rush, loves to go out and meet a bunch of single women, just easily one of those guys that you would want to have a beer with and instantly be friends with. And the whole movie is just about their budding friendship, and it's a bromance movie. And it's hilarious because it's one of the few bromance movies that doesn't just focus in on the sex stuff and the raunch stuff and how piggish men can be. It focuses on how ridiculous men can be and how childlike that we all are. No matter how old, no matter how mature we get, there's always that inner child inside of us that never quite goes away.
Making his move slowly but surely. Watch the leg. Wait for it. Wait for it. Fart. Boom. That's a fart, motherfucker.
Oh my God.
That's a fucking fart.
Oh my God.
Look at him. Crop dusting across your open house. It's a disgrace.
He farted. partied in my open house.
You sure did.
And this movie just celebrates that. Just them in their garage, fucking guitar lipping thing, blah, 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 playing Rush, all the little catchphrases that come out of Paul Rudd as he's trying his damnedest to come up with like something witty to say, and it just comes out wrong every single time. Great side characters. One of the funnier turns by Jon Favreau as this guy who's kind of a dick to his wife, and every single time they argue, they end up having like violent sex afterwards. It is an absolute classic, one of my favorites, very nostalgic for me. Yeah, I love you, man. The Way Back. Now this is another one of those movies that I think is criminally underrated. This actually came out in a year where I had no idea what this movie was. I wasn't on YouTube at the time, but I had always done like top 10 of the year lists on Facebook and things like that. I did my top 10 of the year, saw this movie a couple of weeks later, and actually went back and had to redo my top 10, which I had never done before up to that point. This is such a relatable comedy slash drama where you get this kid who, like a lot of the movies that I've already talked about, main character who's a little bit dorky, a little bit socially inept, very quiet, and he gets into this situation where his mom, played by Toni Collette, is dating Steve Carell. Steve Carell's a total asshole.
Duncan, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you think you are?
A 6.
I think you're a 3.
This was one of the first roles where you see him play somebody totally unlikable, and he's great in it. And they're forced to go to this guy's little beach house getaway for the summer, and he's miserable. He hates the guy, he hates his daughter, he hates being there, and it takes him kind of stumbling across this little local water park that's ran by Sam Rockwell and a couple other comedians that you will recognize to kind of pull him out of his shell, give him happiness, break him into a personality that he didn't know that he had, give him some confidence, and it's just such a great coming-of-age movie to where Sam Rockwell is at his funniest in this movie. It's one of my, if not my favorite role that he's ever done, comedic-wise.
We have a situation over at Harpoon Lagoon.
Is it a homicide?
Yeah, it's a homicide.
I knew this day would come.
You have this kid who plays such a sweet character to where you feel sorry for him, you get frustrated by him because you're like, just say something, the girl likes you, damn it. And then you see Steve Carell and Toni Collette and their relationship, which is the darker side of the movie. And the movie handles all of these tones beautifully, to where when you get into things where Steve Carell is obviously cheating on her, and you're seeing the pieces come together in this miserable situation, and then all of a sudden you go back and you're having these little raunchy laughs with Sam Rockwell, and it never feels like the movie is battling tones. It feels like it just balances all of it great. So easily one of my favorite comedies. Like if I'm ever just like in a feel-good mood, I just want to throw something on and make me laugh and smile, this is one of my go-tos.
You like it so far?
Mm-hmm. Everybody's been real nice.
Well, that's because you have big jugs. I mean, your boobs are huge. I mean, I want to squeeze them. Mama!
God, it's hot in here.
Just when I think you couldn't possibly be any dumber, you go and do something like this. And totally redeem yourself!
How you at?
Oh, cool.
Damn! Put your glasses back on.
Kidding me, man?
Hold my goddamn hand, man! Do it! Just hold. Okay, here we go. No. Yep.
1, 2, 3.
Oh, nipple fuck!
Number 16 is American Pie. This was my generation's comedy. This, I was probably a couple years too young to probably be watching this movie, but as I've said numerous times, I pretty much had free reign. I was always mature enough to know the difference, to know not what to repeat around teachers and grandma and shit like that. So my dad gave me pretty good free reign to a certain extent. So American Pie came out. I was like 9 years old. I watched it. I loved it. Didn't get a lot of the humor at the time. Obviously, a couple years later, I was like, that's what that shit means. American Pie. But as far as a high school comedy, getting all of the different characters together, the jock, the cool guy, the asshole, the nerd, the real nerd, putting them all together and making it totally believable that they are a group of friends that actually would hang out and get along. the movie's one of the best at doing that. Usually you look at that and you're like, I wouldn't go that way. They would be in their own cliques. You believe it in American Pie. And the situations that they put these kids into as they are on this journey, this pact to lose their virginity, it never loses a single ounce of hilarity.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
Huh? Jim?
It's not what it looks like.
I just rewatched this like a month ago, and I laughed the whole damn movie. Like, I've seen it 100 times. I know every joke that's around the corner, but it still makes me laugh. From all of the nasty exploits that Stifler gets into, from Finch being forced to take a shit in the girl's bathroom, to Jim fucking a pie. I mean, these are like iconic, classic comedic moments that are all jam-packed into one awesome little high school comedy. And it's one of my favorites. It's a very important movie. Helped me grow up a little bit. It's one of my favorites. Number 15 is Dirty Work. The best dumb comedy of all time. That and Dumb and Dumber, they're close. They're close in this list too, but Dirty Work is a movie that on paper I should hate, because my style of humor, my sense of humor, it's always blocked me from kind of the intentionally dumb movies. Like Anchorman I could never get into, for example. But for some reason, Dirty Work just works for me.
Looks like there's gonna be a brawl. You playing something good?
Hell yeah! Rolling Stones, street fighting man, G7!
You just hit G8.
If you like pina coladas, bring it on! Ah.
Note to self, learn to fight.
This is a movie that I believe was directed by Bob Saget, maybe written by him too. You got Norm Macdonald in one of the only like lead roles that you'll see him in. And he's partnered up with Artie Lang, who's a guy that you probably have never heard of before. But these two guys get into these exploits to where they start a revenge for hire business. If you got a shithead neighbor that's playing a lot of loud music, you call them, they fuck with your neighbor, they get him to stop. And it's just hilarious because it's really just a bunch of individual little bits and little skits and, you know, like little Saturday Night Live gags that are kind of strung together with this little narrative of them trying to start this business to get money to get their father a new heart. But it's absolutely hilarious.
Something can be one way you think all your life, and then in reality it's completely different.
Yeah. Hey, I'm gonna kill you, asshole!
Sam, are you pissing off the side of the building?
Sorta.
It is the perfect amount of stupid and raunchy. It's got a lot of the classic actors, comedic actors from the 90s. You got Chris Farley in there. It's perfect. It's perfectly imperfect. Number 14 is gonna be Wedding Crashers. Now this is a movie that, again, kind of came out of nowhere for me. I wasn't quite on the Vince Vaughn train at the time. He was great in Old School, but he also kind of played a dick. So I wasn't sure if I liked him or not. I'm like, is this guy funny or is he an asshole? And I haven't quite figured that out yet. Wedding Crashers, I figured it out. I love you, Vince Vaughn. Ever since Wedding Crashers, you are the man. Him and Owen Wilson had the perfect chemistry in this. This whole concept of these two hornballs that crash weddings so that they can sleep with all of the horny single girls that get that wedding fever. And then they get stuck in a situation where Owen Wilson is really trying to get with Rachel McAdams and slowly falls in love with her. Vince Vaughn is absolutely stuck with Isla Fisher, and she is a nutcase. You get Christopher Walken as the dad of these two girls. You got Bradley Cooper in one of his first turns before he was honestly a leading guy, before he was likable, because he's a total prick in this. This movie is an absolute classic.
Claire's mom just made me grab her Hooters.
Well, snap out of it. What, a hot older woman made you feel her cans? Stop crying like a little girl.
I wasn't crying like a little girl.
Why don't you try getting jacked off under the table in front of the whole damn family and have some real problems? Jackass. What were they like anyway? They look pretty good. Are they real?
It is a guy movie through and through, but there's enough heart there. There is enough heartfelt notes in the storyline and where they end up learning and growing as people by the end of it that women can watch it and laugh along, and it's not like one of those eye-rolling movies that you have to watch when your wife's out of the room. Wedding Crashers is just a perfect comedy that they keep talking about a sequel. I don't know. Them long-awaited sequels don't have a good track record, but if Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson come back for it, I'll be there day one. Number 13 is Sex Drive. By far, the most underappreciated comedy on this list. This is a movie that every single time I introduce it to somebody, after the movie rolls the credits, the first thing that they say is, where the fuck has this movie been my whole life? Why have I not known about this? It is so goddamn funny that I do not understand how this is not an instant classic, how this is not one of those movies like Wedding Crashers, like some of the other movies I've talked about that just define that year that they came out. Sex Drive just kind of slipped under the radar back in like 2008, 2009, whenever I was in college. I got a bootleg copy of it, watched it, and I was like, holy shit, this is fucking hilarious. Tried and true story formula where you get this dork who's very socially inept that is trying to lose his virginity, has a little online relationship with a girl called Miss Tasty who's a fucking supermodel, and she offers to sleep with him if he drives across country to meet her. So him and his best friends steal his very, very dick-headed older brother's GTO Judge, go across country so that he can lose his virginity. And just the exploits that they get in along that road trip is comedy gold. And the older brother, Rex, who is played by Cyclops himself.
Felicia, you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Ian, give me the goddamn gun before you shoot your dick off.
Rex, I got this.
Ian!
God damn it, Rex, I got this. Do not fuck with me. Not now.
Easy back, man. That donut ain't fucking around.
James Marsden is like a comedy classic character in this movie. Like, he almost rivals Steve Stifler in this because he is such a dick, but he just rolls so quickly with his dialogue as he's just berating his brother and just doing the older brother thing but turned up to like 14, that it is hilarious. It's classic, and the relationship between these three friends is great too. You get Clark Duke, who was kind of a thing for like 2 years there, who's at one of his funnier turns in this. And Seth Green, again, kind of a cameo, extended cameo character that makes the movie really. Him and Rex battle it out throughout the entire runtime for who's the more memorable character. If you have not seen Sex Drive, make sure you don't watch the unrated one. They warn you beforehand. They put a lot of weird, goofy stuff in there to play it up. Watch the regular theatrical version, but watch this fucking movie. Number 12, one of those sequels that, for me, does surpass the original, American Pie 2. Now, they're pretty close. It's pretty razor thin. They're both up here near the top, but American Pie 2 has always been just slightly more funny to me. Maybe it's because they all feel like they're more of a group of friends, where Stifler was kind of more the outsider, more of a side character in the first movie. I'm not quite sure. Maybe it's the college situations over the high school situations. This movie's just another absolute classic like the first one. To be honest, I love all four of the mainline American Pie movies. I think they're all pretty damn good, but these first two are by far the best. American Pie 2, where they've come back from their first year at college, they're trying to kind of reintegrate themselves back into the high school crowd that they grew up in their town. Not quite working, so they move to a summer beach house on Lake Michigan and throw this gigantic party at the end of the summer. And just like the first one, the exploits that these guys get into throughout that wait from June to the end of summer where this party is going to be going on is a riot. Like, the whole situation, which is the standout scene of the movie for me, where Stifler thinks these two hot-ass chicks might be lesbians, so he's trying to sneak into their little house, their beach house, to find evidence. Then they get stuck in there, and the two girls make them do gay shit so that they'll do stuff. It's so hilarious to see heterosexual men thrown into these, like, situations where they have to do homosexual things and just how uncomfortable they get.
2, 3. Oh, that doesn't even count.
What, that counted?
Totally counted. That's how you kiss your mother. Mm-hmm.
Don't you say anything.
Make it real.
Being that the comedy is focused around their own insecurities and not, making fun of the homosexual crowd or anything, I think it's still pretty damn funny. And it's okay to talk about it. I'm sorry, it is. But you get that situation, you get the whole situation where, Jim is trying to prep himself back up for Nadia because Nadia's coming back, and he's entrusted the help of the girl that he did lose his virginity to, Michelle, the band geek, to try to, bring the freak out in him, and how that kind of whole thing twists on its head by the end of the movie. Again, just like the first one, hilarity, raunchy, a lot of heart at the end of it where things end up. And these are just some of my favorite characters of all time in comedies. So I love American Pie 2 just a little bit more than the first one.
Holy shit, dude, I found a dildo!
Number 11, Cable Guy. This is my favorite Jim Carrey comedy. Not a lot of people would probably say that. There's probably a few others that will make it higher on this list by a mile over Cable Guy. But for me, that dark comedy, Ben Stiller directed this one. It has that perfect amount of everything that I want from a Jim Carrey character. It's hilarious. It's a very relatable situation. You get Matthew Broderick, who's just a regular guy who's off living on his own after a broken relationship. Jim Carrey comes in as kind of this very socially awkward guy that wants a friend so bad that any little small amount of friendliness that Matthew Broderick gets, he misinterprets it, and that's his best friend. He kind of becomes psycho and fixated on him. And just where that relationship goes throughout the movie, where he's uncomfortable with him, then they're like best friends, then it gets a little too weird, then they're like main enemies. It is an absolute riot. There's a little bit of raunch in there, but really it's just about situational humor. You know, them being in the Knights of the Round Table. The whole time he's doing with his mouth the tune for the Star Trek episode where Kirk and Spock have to fight each other. You know, little vocal ticks and lisps and stuff like that, if it's overdone, it can make a character very annoying. Like, as much as I love Little Nicky, that's one of those movies. Adam Sandler's not very good at walking that line. Jim Carrey works it perfectly into this because that lisp with his character just makes him somehow more relatable, and you like him even though he's the whack job of the movie. So it's a great comedy. One of my favorites, and definitely my favorite Jim Carrey movie. Number 10 is Chef. This is a movie that I saw in theaters and have loved it ever since. This is a movie that totally speaks to me in every single way. I'm a food fanatic. I love to cook. I love to learn about cooking. A lot of times when I'm not doing YouTube videos and I'm not talking about movies, the other side of my YouTube life is watching food channels, cooking channels, food reviews, just because I love to cook. I love that whole side of art. And this is a movie about that passion for that art. And it's also about a father's relationship with his son and him trying to kind of fix that relationship and rekindle it by taking his son on this road trip. So while he's finding himself through this food truck, he's also kind of rediscovering his son that he's had this weird, estranged relationship with.
I won't send it until we all say it's okay. Why don't you come by again tonight? I got a whole new menu just for you, asshole.
Oh, no,
That's
not good. Give me the phone. Give me the phone.
Don't do it.
That's out there now, bro. It happens. Why would you do that?
You can't take that back.
It's a movie that has very funny scenes and very good delivery with the lines, very good writing, but it's a movie that just has a very balanced heart with it as well, where you feel these real life situations and you feel like this father-son relationship and this broken relationship with his ex-wife being healed by the end of the movie, and it lifts you up. As you're laughing about this guy's kind of downfall and then, you know, journey back up, you're kind of made whole by the end as well as the main character. So it's a movie that I think has a little bit of everything for everybody, and I absolutely love it. Number 9 is Multiplicity, one of my favorite underrated comedies of all time. I know I say that word a lot, but a lot of my favorites are movies that I feel like nobody ever talks about. Multiplicity is one of those. You get Michael Douglas, he's an overworked dad. He has a job where he's a construction foreman or a manager, and he's overworked. He's got a wife that wants more. He's got kids that want more. And he's like, fuck, if there was only 2 of me. And then he finds this guy by situational chance that actually knows how to clone people. So he clones himself, sends one of his clones to work.
Looks like it didn't take. Hey, don't ever blow smoke in my face again. What are you gonna do about it? What am I gonna do about it? I'll hit you so hard, I'll kill him. Guys, come on.
Sends another one to the house to go, you know, take care of the house stuff, and he just goes and parties. And each single time that he comes back and things get a little harder, he gets another clone to kind of keep up with life. But as he starts to get clones to take up all of these different aspects of life that he doesn't want to deal with anymore, he realizes how empty life actually is if you don't experience all of those things. And so he kind of has to come back together as himself by the end of it to, you know, reclaim his life. And it's a very hilarious movie with what Michael Douglas can do. Michael Keaton. Did I say Michael Douglas at the beginning of this, or did I just fuck that up once?
You get Michael Douglas.
Michael Keaton. Delete that damn comment. I know who I'm talking about. Batman. Michael Keaton.
Did you have sex with my wife?
No!
No! Did you? No! Douglas, no! I certainly did not. Look, here was the plan. I thought, well, we'll go to bed together, which we did, and when she'd fall asleep, I'd sneak out, but I guess I dozed off, and nothing happened, Doug. Nothing happened.
Where he's the regular Michael Keaton, and then he's the more masculine Michael Keaton, and then he's the more feminine Michael Keaton, then eventually they get one that's a little bit slow and he has to play that. The voices, the physical acting of Michael Keaton in this is just, it's awesome. It's to me, it's his funniest comedic performance, and for everybody that loves him as Batman, this is my favorite movie that he's ever done. Number 8, My Cousin Vinny. This is an absolute classic comedy that the more I watch it, the higher it gets on this list. Joe Pesci and Marissa Tomei are an absolute riot together. You know, you get a post-Karate Kid Ralph Macchio in this in a smaller role. Him and his best friend going across country. They get, you know, accidentally in this situation where they get to be the main suspects of this murder in this small country town, and his cousin Vinny, played by Joe Pesci, just happens to be a lawyer, comes in and tries to get them out. And the situational comedy that he gets into with trying to, as a hard New York character, trying to mingle with these Southern folks, also trying to learn criminal law and learn the, you know, trial process along the way as he goes along.
Everything that guy just said is bullshit. Thank you.
While trying to find enough evidence to exonerate his cousin, it's just a fucking great classic comedy that has anything that you would want in a comedy. It's got situational humor, it's got a lot of awesome dialogue, especially between him and Marissa Tomei. It's got enough tension in there for a courtroom drama, but it's also played in a comedic effect. You get Fred Gwynne in here as the judge, and just this antagonistic relationship that he has with Vinny, to where Vinny is just so off kilter and just so unlawyerly that it offends him down to his core, and then just continuously throws him in jail after court every single day for, you know, being in contempt of court. It's great. It's endlessly rewatchable. One of the best. Number 7, another movie that is so criminally underrated that it drives me nuts, and that is Dutch. This is one of the lost John Hughes movies. He didn't direct it, but he wrote it, and it feels exactly like all the other John Hughes movies, so it might as well be. This is the John Hughes movie that nobody talks about. You know, that and along with Curly Sue, but this is much better than Curly Sue. You get Ed O'Neill, who is this regular schlub. He's dating JoBeth Williams. JoBeth Williams has this asshole little preteen son played by a very young Ethan Embry, and he has to go across country to get this kid and bring him back for Thanksgiving, and they just fight with each other the entire way back.
Excuse me. I know that what you were saying to Natalie was personal. I understand. I'm involved with her now, so this is personal too. You hurt her and I'll hit you so fucking hard your dog will bleed, okay? Nice meeting.
He wants nothing to do with his mom or Ed O'Neill. Ed O'Neill's trying to like hammer life and, you know, maturity and adulthood into his head the whole time. And it's this great mix of this kind of father-son relationship between these two really strangers, to where he's trying to get this kid to grow up and the kid's kind of bringing him down a little bit as well. But you also get all of the great comedy in there, to where they come to blows literally time after time after time on this road trip. And it just never fails to make me laugh my ass off every single time that I watch it. It's also a Thanksgiving movie, so I get the extra excuse to watch it. So every single Thanksgiving I watch one movie that I'm about to talk about here in a little bit, and then I follow it up with Dutch every single year.
And you can't do anything about it, because I can kick your butt.
Well, I won't cop to that, but I will say this. There's one thing I can do that you can't.
What?
I can pay for my breakfast.
If you love John Hughes movies, if you love Ed O'Neill back from the old Married with Children days, even if you're a fan of Ethan Embry, you want to see some of the early shit that he did, this is a must-watch comedy. It is a gut buster, and it should not only be in your collection, but in your favorite comedy list of all time. So get it there. Number 6 is gonna be Twins, one of my favorite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies, and definitely my favorite comedic turn by Arnold Schwarzenegger. You pair him up with Danny DeVito, to where they are these genetically created twins. Obviously, you get one that's huge, big, strong, smart, you know, cultured. You get Danny DeVito, who's short, a little pudgy, got bald head. He's kind of a criminal, kind of a dickhead, and they meet for the first time, and they kind of balance each other out. You know, he kind of gets Arnold Schwarzenegger to understand the real world a little bit more, and he kind of puts a little bit of heart into Danny DeVito, where he was this hardened guy that kind of just scammed everybody, and he starts to actually feel like he has a place in the world because he has this family that he's never known about. And it's just great. Just that whole concept of those two actors being blood brothers and how that whole thing works is a riot. I mean, it's easily, to me, the best comedic term by Arnold Schwarzenegger. You know, you got Kindergarten Cop, you got Jingle All the Way that's in there, but this is the one where I feel like Arnold Schwarzenegger's just physical presence is kind of the joke here. And the fact that he can beat the shit out of anybody that comes across Danny DeVito, and there's a lot of people that come across him that don't like him, is great. And there's so many quotable lines in here. This is one of those movies that I watched with my dad continuously, and we will both just pull lines out of this movie and make each other laugh. It's just one of those feel-good comedies to me that I love to rewatch. One of my favorites, Twins. Number 5 is Tommy Boy. Yes, Chris Farley making it all the way up to the top 5. God bless him. I wish we did not lose him so soon, because as a kid, he was one of my favorites. As an adult, he's still one of my favorites. And this is by far the best movie that he ever got to make. He didn't get to make too many, but Tommy Boy is an instant classic.
Housekeeping, you want mint for pillow?
Please go away. Let me sleep for the love of God.
Housekeeping, you want me to jerk you off?
What kind of hotel is this?
Oh, it's you. Good morning, sunshine.
You pair him up with David Spade, and their chemistry is just one of the great all-time comedic duos. And, you know, they try to recapture it a little bit here and there, you know, like when they did Black Sheep. Never been a big fan of that movie, but Tommy Boy was when it was just off the charts good. It's such a good story that has just enough heart to not detract from the comedy, but it's enough to where the comedy doesn't get to where you kind of lose the reality of it a bit, where he's this down and out kind of a dumbass. You know, he barely skates by in college. He finally comes back to inherit this company from his dad. His dad dies, and then he's left with this empire and has no idea what the fuck to do. And he has to go on this road trip with David Spade to save his family's company. And along the way, he gets a little bit smarter. Along the way, he's challenged a little bit. He gets this budding, you know, friendship that started off as antagonistic, and just this journey of him kind of becoming a man and growing out of his little high school, college party guy personality. It's just great to see.
Bad guy in a little coat. Bad guy in a little coat.
Take it off, dickhead. I'm serious.
Richard, what's happening?
All that physical comedy that Chris Farley was just a master at is on point this entire movie. I mean, even from the opening credits when it's showing him go from a young kid to grown-up Tommy as he's just trying to catch the bus, that lets you know what movie you're in for. And I am always in for that movie when that movie is Tommy Boy. Number 4, another comedic actor that was taken way too soon, and that is John Candy in Uncle Buck. Uncle Buck is one of those comedies that is just, to me, the ultimate feel-good comedy. If I need something movie-wise to feel like a warm blanket just wrapped around me, Uncle Buck is absolutely that movie. I can throw it on at any time of the day, any day of the week, any month of the year, and it feels like it's the right time to watch Uncle Buck.
Stand me up today, and tomorrow I'll drive you to school in my robe and pajamas and walk you to your first class. 4 o'clock, okay?
This kind of, not really a schlub, but you know, he's a guy that's not necessarily on the right side of the tracks, not necessarily the most goal-oriented person, has to come in and watch his nieces and his nephew while his brother goes off to, you know, take care of his wife's father. And him being put in this situation where he has to be the father figure makes him grow up, and he also has this niece that is going off and doing all of the wrong teenage girl stuff that all of us fathers, God help me the day that it gets there for me, all of us fathers of daughters will eventually have to deal with. And just the way that they kind of make each other grow throughout the movie, him and his niece Tia, is just something that always warms my heart. When you see Uncle Buck that comes in, I mean, that scene whenever his young niece and the principal of the school is just berating her and talking about what a shitty student she is, and he just fucking eats her alive. Like, that's just one of the scenes that, as a parent and as a kid that used to go to school and have, you know, some teachers like that, I'm like, fuck you, Uncle Buck, get that bitch.
You so much as scowl at my niece or any other kid in this school, and I hear about it, and I'm coming looking for you. Take this quarter. Go downtown and have a rat gnaw that thing off your face.
It is one of those John Hughes movies that just has that John Hughes magic that no other writer-director could ever recapture the way that he did it. You know, you're seeing a lot of John Hughes movies up on the top here, and there's a reason for that. Uncle Buck, absolutely one of my favorites of his. Number 3, a Christmas movie made it all the way up into the top 5, and that is The Ref. The Ref has become my second annual Christmas Day viewing pleasure. Every single year, we open up our presents, we eat, Holly wants to go take a nap, and then I watch The Ref. The Ref is one, again, you hear me say it a million times, take a shot every time I tell you one of these movies is underrated. The Ref is so underrated, so underappreciated. You got Dennis Leary in one of, if not his funniest roles. I've always found him to be a very underappreciated actor in general, but he is hilarious in this as a thief that has been somewhat caught. He's stuck in this town and he has to take a couple hostage in the middle of the worst point of their marriage. And even though they have an armed thug in the house, they just argue and bicker at each other, and it drives him absolutely insane, drives him up a wall, and the more family members that show up at this house for Christmas just drive him even more insane.
No, this one I gotta, don't, it's not worth it. What? Oh, I fucking hate her, Lloyd. I know. Mary, gag your grandma.
The chemistry between Dennis Leary as the captor and Kevin Spacey and Judi Davis as this broken couple as the captives is just off the charts funny. No matter how much he cusses at them, screams at them, sprays them with water, ties them up, threatens them with a gun, they never stop arguing with each other, and it just explodes as the more family members come around, the bitch mother comes around. It all just gets funnier as it goes along, and it just has that... It's kind of a cynical view of Christmas, but it has that Christmas vibe to it throughout the entire time, that even though it's not your typical, you know, Santa Claus, Home Alone, like feel-good type of movie, it's definitely one of the more edgy Christmas movies, but I like my shit edgy. Number 2, speaking of annual holiday viewings, this is a movie that I have to watch every single Thanksgiving. My day is not complete until I watch it, and that is Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. My second favorite comedy of all time, and my favorite John Hughes movie. This movie just has everything, like from physical gags to a little bit of raunchy gags.
Why are you holding my hand? Where's your other hand? Between two pillows. Those aren't pillows.
To the chemistry between Steve Martin and John Candy, to where they get along so well, and then they're so antagonistic against each other, to where, you know, John Candy is the sweetest guy ever, but he's also like the most aggravating guy ever. Steve Martin's just your regular everyday guy trying to get home to his family for Thanksgiving, and the road trip that they have to go along with each other, where, you know, very similar to a movie I'm going to be talking about here in a second, every single mode of transportation they try to take falls through, and they have to go from planes to trains to automobiles to buses, and just trying to get home for the holidays. The hijinks that they get into along the way that they start off not really liking each other and then grow to really caring for each other, it hits all of the notes. Like, as soon as you get to the scene in the movie where Steve Martin finally figures out why John Candy is by himself and just keeps going and showing up along the way when he's supposed to be going home, it will really bring tears to your eyes. In a comedy that's so gut-busting funny, I mean, that scene whenever Steve Martin comes to get his fucking keys to a fucking car.
And I really don't care for the way your company left me in the middle of fucking nowhere with fucking keys to a fucking car that isn't fucking there. I want a fucking car right fucking now.
A movie that has scenes like that will bring a tear to your eye in the end, with how heartfelt that it will end up being in the overall story. And that's just the magic of John Hughes. That is the magic of this movie, and it's something that I have to watch every single year. There's very few movies that I have to watch. This is one of them. And that leads you all the way to my number 1, my favorite comedy of all time. And again, this is a movie that I think is criminally underappreciated, but a little bit more well-known than some of the movies I've said that with, and that is Midnight Run. This is a movie that I don't think I really ever sat down to watch it until I was maybe in my late teens, early 20s. Somewhere along the way, I'd always heard about this movie. It's always been one of those films that, you know, the VHS was always in my dad's collection. Eventually the DVD was, and I just never picked it up for some reason. Finally did, and much like I Love You Man, I liked it, but I didn't know if I loved it. Like, there was just something different about the edge to it, something different about the comedy there that was just so unique. And the more that I've watched it over the years, every single time I've grown to love it more. I've watched it dozens of times. And very similar to The Ref, the comedy that just comes out of this antagonistic relationship between Robert De Niro as the bounty hunter and Charles Grodin as the guy on the run that he's trying to get a hold of and bring back to his bookie, or to his bail bondsman. There's so much hilarity that comes out of that as they are just fire and oil to each other, and every single time that they get into a situation, they just make things ignite even more in hilarity.
All right, everyone, just calm down. All right, what's the problem?
It's nothing, sir. It's okay. Alonzo Mosley, FBI. This man is in my custody. I'm taking him back to Los Angeles. There won't be any more problems.
I don't want to fly. I can't fly, really. You can't take a prisoner aboard an airplane if he doesn't want to fly. You should know that.
And then throughout the movie, you start to see them kind of grow attached to each other and grow that friendship. You know, if you could tell, I'm a fan of comedies that have heart, that have a little bit more to say than just funny sight gags or dick and fart jokes. I like movies that have a little bit of, you know, a journey that you have to go on, and Midnight Run is absolutely that. But even if you're just focusing on the comedy, my God, but even if you just want to focus on the comedy, my God, Robert De Niro at his funniest in this. And he's had quite a few successful comedies. You saw another one on this list. But him as Jack Walsh, this cantankerous, foul-mouthed, rough around the edges bounty hunter with a chip on his shoulder, an edge towards life, that is like the perfect character for Robert De Niro to play. And you get Charles Grodin, who everybody knows from Beethoven, but he's only been in a few select, you know, call them classics, and kind of disappeared from Hollywood for ever since. This is a perfect role for him too, to where he just has that very subtle, dry humor, to where him being very proper and nice and respectful just comes across as funny because of how much it annoys and pisses off Robert De Niro. And it's filled with great side roles. You got Joe Pantoliano as the bail bondsman, the one who hires Robert De Niro, and the phone call conversations back and forth between them are great. You get from the Beverly Hills Cop, which I know a lot of people are gonna be pissed was not on this list. It came close. You get Taggart himself.
You guys are the dumbest bounty hunters I've ever seen! You couldn't even deliver a bottle of milk!
John Ashton plays the rival bounty hunter to Robert De Niro's character, and he just shows up periodically throughout the movie to kind of screw up the works because he's also trying to hunt Charles Grodin. And the comedy that comes out of these two characters, these two bounty hunters, meeting and fucking with each other throughout the movie is great. This is honestly one of those movies that there's very few, even the ones that I really love and cherish, there's very few that I can honestly say I can watch 1,000 times and still love it just as much as I did the first time. This is a movie that no matter how many times I rewatch it, no matter how many times I introduce it to somebody new, how many times I've talked about it, there's some scenes that just continuously make me gut laugh like it's the first time I've ever seen it. Midnight Run is by far my favorite comedy. This is a movie that I cherish, I celebrate, and I recommend all of you check out immediately if you have not seen it. Seriously, listen to me. Midnight Run. Watch it. Well, that's it, guys. That is my top 50 comedies of all time. Like I said, keep your eyes peeled on this channel. We're going to have top 50 action films, top 50 horror films, and then top 100 films of all time coming up in the next couple of weeks. Be sure to check out Brian Lomax's video. Like I said, I guarantee you, I bet my life, it's going to be a vastly different list than mine. So you're going to get very different perspectives from two very different film fans. Check out the link down below. Check out his video. Tell him that Cody sent you over there. If you're not already a subscriber, be sure to do that as well. And as far as this channel, like and share this video if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed it and you want to stick around and see those follow-up videos that are going to be coming. I guarantee you're going to be entertained by those. A lot of wild choices on those too. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean that you have to be.